Hi guys, welcome to section B of chapter 10. This section starts on page 200 in your book, and you're definitely going to want to follow along because there's a lot of really great pictures in the book of all these different creatures. So this section is all about invertebrates, okay? We kind of talked about the difference between the invertebrate and vertebrate, and we already listed all the 9 main phyla of the animals that there are. 8 of the 9 of the phyla that we listed are actually invertebrates, okay? Meaning they don't have a backbone, no vertebrae, okay? As we go through this list of 8, the animals are going to kind of start getting more and more complex. We're going to start with the most basic animals and get more complex until we actually hit the vertebrates, which are the most complex, okay? But it's all relative. So we have this thing known as relative complexity, because even the simplest of animals is an incredibly complex creature. So complex that it's hard to imagine that it could randomly just evolve without a creator behind it to put those complicated parts together and design it, okay? In general, though, or not even in general, just in fact, the invertebrates are not as complicated or as complex as the vertebrates. All right, let's jump in. So our very first phylum, it's down here on the bottom, let me get my pen, is Porifera, okay? And that is the sponges. There's no symmetry. They are asymmetrical. Remember we talked about the asymmetrical, bilateral, or radial. No cephalization, so there's no actual like head region with those sense organs. No digestive system, no gut. Basically, they're just very porous. These are actual sponges. So the sponges, like natural sponges, are kind of the dried out body of these animals. And they're very porous, and these openings, these holes in their body, allow the water to kind of pass in and out, and they're able to capture food as the water passes and release waste. So very simple, very basic creatures, okay? Our next phylum is the Cnidarians. You don't pronounce the C, it's Cnidarians. And that's all of our jellyfish, our anemones, and coral, okay? What's left, well, like a coral reef, that's what's left when the animal dies off. It's kind of the remnants of the body, okay? The Cnidarians have stinging cells. The cells themselves are called cnidocytes. That's why they're called Cnidarians, and they use those to help them catch food. And most of these Cnidarians have radial symmetry. Remember, that's kind of circular creatures that have multiple lines of symmetry. Okay, so you can kind of see this jellyfish up here. You know, you could cut it multiple ways. Kind of top-down view of that and still have that symmetry. All right, moving on to the worms. Now, the worms actually have 3 phylum to themselves. These are big, complicated words, okay? All of the worms have bilateral symmetry. They're kind of round, cylindrical creatures. We start to see cephalization now. So they do have kind of this head region, okay? Kind of a front of their body. And then the 3 groups, the 3 phylum that we get are the Platyhelminthes. Those are the flatworms. This is an example of a flatworm. That's actually a tapeworm that can get into your body, and it actually attaches to your stomach, and it just kind of hangs on, and it eats the food that you eat. Really nasty. Nematoda, those are the round worms. They have the first complete gut. So they have an opening for food, and then they have an exit for waste. So the digestive system is one way. And then the Annelida phylum, those are the segmented worms. Like this guy up here is a segmented worm. Earthworms are considered segmented worms, and they actually start to have some organs, and you can kind of start to see some more complexity there. All right, then we move into the echinoderms. These are sea stars, urchins, sea cucumbers, things like that. Again, still no skeleton, no backbone, okay? The word echinoderm means spiny skin. So this is not a sea anemone, that's a sea urchin. Those are the spiky ones, okay? They all kind of have that spiky skin in common. And most of them have radial symmetry still. So you can see like the starfish has multiple lines of symmetry there, okay? All right, then we're into the mollusks. That's the phylum mollusk. This word refers to a very soft body. There are three classes, so kind of subgroups, not phylum, but kind of within the phylum mollusk, we get gastropods, which are snails and slugs, very soft. We get cephalopods. Okay, there's that cepha root again, and that's our octopuses and squid. Still very soft, but a very obvious head and quite a bit of a nervous system now too. And then finally our bivalves, bi meaning two. And so these are our shelled, our hinged animals like clams and oysters. Those are all part of the phylum mollusk. Okay? Getting a little more complex. Now we're up to the arthropods. Okay? This is the phylum that has the most species of any other phyla, which, by the way, the invertebrates, more than 95% of all animals are invertebrates. When we talk about invertebrates, that's less than 5% of the animals, even though that seems to be the most common ones we think of. Anyway, back to the arthropods. The name refers to the fact that they have jointed appendages. So their arms and legs have joints in them, okay? We see that they have an exoskeleton, which means they have some kind of structure system on the outside of their body. We'll talk about the endoskeleton, which is an internal skeleton when we get to vertebrates, but these arthropods have an exoskeleton. And then our three main groups are the insects, the crustaceans, and I don't know how to say that, chelicerates. So the insects, obviously we know the insects, but the kind of the pattern that we're looking for is their bodies have three distinct segments and they have 6 legs. Okay. The crustaceans tend to have a little bit of a harder shell, a harder exoskeleton, and they can have 8 to 10 legs. Okay. And then we get to our chelicerates. I really should figure out how to pronounce that. Our spiders are included in that, as well as our scorpions and ticks. They only have 2 body segments, and then we're up to the 8 legs. Okay, we all know that about spiders, right? They've got those 8 legs. Whew, we made it. That's a lot of animals. All right, talk to you guys later.